and I am now going to hand over to Maddie, who will be facilitating and hosting this session.
Thank you, Anna. Welcome everybody to this session. It's been quite an intense week, and I'm sure your brains are all really buzzing with all kinds of amazing information and experiences. So thanks for coming to the late session and giving us your time. I just want to invite everybody in the first instance just to introduce yourselves in the chat. Just maybe say who you are, where you're based, and what brought you to this session. Maybe perhaps something about what you do in the context of this conference. That would be great, just so that we can see who's here. So we've got, it's really great to be, my name's Maddie. I'm actually based in Bristol, and I have the pleasure of working with Jeremy Iles, who's already here, also here, on something called the Urban Agriculture Consortium, which is a new kind of network, a new project that's got 3 years of funding from Esme Fairbairn to bring people together across the UK around the question of how we do urban and peri-urban agriculture, how we upscale to and a kind of learning exchange. And that's all in very early days, and I've been learning a huge amount from the people that are taking part so far. So they're all working very creatively as advocates in their own towns and cities. At the moment, the people we're working with, the cities that we're working with, are all in the north. We're working with a northern cluster, and Jeremy will tell you a bit more about that in a bit. So just briefly, those in the room who are part of the consortium are Joe in Middlesbrough, Sonia in Leeds, and Gareth in Sheffield, Nick with the Open Food Network, Jeremy and Anna in Lancaster also, and others who aren't here. So it's great that you're all here. And just by way of briefly sort of opening the session, just to frame the question, how and can nature-friendly urban farming and growing contribute to tackling food security and the climate emergency? That's kind of what we'll be delving into a bit today, and it's going to be this evening. It's going to be not just presentation, as much presentation as discussion. So it's going to be very much all chatting with each other. And we've never been in this situation before as a species, of the shared challenge of creating a food system that can feed more and more people year round during a time of collapse, while restoring ecosystems and keeping society on the rails. Is it even possible? What is possible in a UK and North of England context? And changes are afoot, and many that we can't predict, and some that we are trying to. And change is too slow, but the foundations are being laid for a transition, very much so. And I just wanted to kind of bring in here an image that probably many of you are familiar with, which helps me certainly to start to bring some of these issues together about how do we think about climate change and food security. And this is the donut put together by Kate Rayworth, that looks at how are we overshooting the planetary boundaries. The outer green ring and the red areas outside the outer green ring are the planetary boundaries that we have already overshot. And all of them relate to food and agriculture, interestingly. And inside the inner ring is the social foundation. So that's based on the Sustainable Development Goals. And the red is where we are falling short. So what this symbolises is how we need to get inside the donut, which she calls the just and safe space for humanity. So in that kind of framing, it's a really brilliant tool for finding, when we're talking about our food system and trying to find common values and common ground, this is an excellent sort of visual tool to use in those discussions. So to say, whether you're a local authority or community group working in growing or food poverty, how do we get inside the donut? How do we meet the needs of the social foundation and the ecological ceiling when it's already overshot and already in collapse? So that's a bit of the framing, and I will put a link to that in the chat shortly. So I'm going to hand over to Jeremy just to say a little bit more about the Urban Agriculture Consortium and where it's come from, where it's going. Over to you, Jeremy.
Hi everyone, thanks for giving up your evening. It's a bit of a struggle, I know, because I'm feeling a bit, not stressed, but apprehensive. Running a Zoom session is really quite a strange experience and not one I'm entirely comfortable with. I think that's probably the same for all of us. So bear with us, we're all learning, we're all humans, we all get things wrong. Firstly, thanks to the Northern Real Farming Conference. One of the last trips I did on a train was actually at the beginning of March, and I went to Lancaster for a meeting with Anna and her colleagues and Dr. Jess Davies at the university. And we were talking about this conference being on the horizon, and I said, oh, could we be part of that if we get our funding? And here we are. And it's really great. It's the first opportunity we've had to go public since we got the grant in May, June time. And so in a sense, this is a soft launch of the Urban Agriculture Consortium. We're very much in the early days, and it's very much test and stretch. Tell us how it is. We're listening. We don't have one model that fits all. So just very briefly, I've got 5 minutes and I'm going to try and be brief because there's lots of other people who want to speak. I did 16 years at the Federation of City Farms and Community Gardens, so I learned a lot about allotments and all that stuff and food growing in a community sense, educational connectivity, well-being. But when I left there, me and a colleague just sort of went, well, Sustainable Food Cities is doing a fantastic job. Kindling Trust are doing a fantastic job. Everyone's doing really good work, but no one was promoting urban food growing per se. It was almost like a byproduct of everything else, much that's important. So I started doing some work on that and got some initial funding from Esme Fairburn. So Joy Carey, myself, 2 other women, and Maddie did a bit of work with us last year, did some research around that between 2017 and 2019 when we ran out of money. So they went back to Esme Fairburn, and to cut a very long story short, that programme developed into a consultation process across the UK, which indicated a very latent demand for upscaling urban agriculture, even though that was before COVID. So we had climate change and biosphere destruction, we had Brexit, we had food insecurity on the table, but we didn't have COVID as well. The consortium evolved basically late in 2019 in order to, and we put in a successful bid to Esme Fairburn that went through that process. So we're now in the stages of setting the programme in motion. We've got funding for 3 years, and the aim is to get policies across the UK in towns, cities, regions that support grassroots activity, community enterprise, social enterprise, and business to upscale food production at a substantial level. And we're not going to put figures on that, but that's what we're doing. We're working, I'm very grateful to Maddie for having joined the team. She's brought in a really good perspective on ways of working together, adding value, collaborative, dynamic management, and being flexible. But one of the key phrases that's come out of the consultation since we started in June is our job is to amplify and accelerate this process. And I think if we can all bear that in mind, if we can all say commonality, we want a better food system, a just food system. If we can all say we're going to amplify and accelerate it, whatever it is, and that phrase came out of a discussion in Scotland with a local authority officer in Perth. So credit to him. So we're trying to take action that will bring about change. And the background vision, Maddie, if you've got a chance to put that up, in the context of climate change, biosphere destruction, and those other things. If not, don't worry too much. There we go. All communities across the UK enjoy nutritious, fresh, seasonal and culturally appropriate food year-round, sourced from agroecological growers who are part of an integrated, regenerative and just food system. All words to that effect, and we're not going to worry too much about the semantics. That's a general sense of what we've got. And underneath that, the mission is to support communities to upscale urban and peri-urban, nature-friendly urban farming and growing. Thanks, Maddie. So the current state of play is we've got the grant funding. We're beginning to set up, and Maddie and myself are working on this as we've got core partners from various organisations, permaculture associations, community supported agriculture, open food network, social farms and gardens, and Regather, Chef Food, and as also Sonia in Leeds and various other towns and cities we're talking to. We've got a core operational group. I want to stop just at that point and say, I want to put on record recognition of the fact that we're developing work that's already been done by other organisations, including Sustainable Food Places, Kindling, Sustain, all those organisations, and Land Workers Alliance. Although we're not really connected with them, they're doing some fantastic work, and all our work builds on someone else's work that's gone before. So I just think we need to recognise that and to pay credit to people. Because of the need to get the project up and running with a limited budget, we made a decision, whether rationally or not, to go with this northern cluster, which was actually before we put in a submission to the Northern Real Farming Conference, but we just found that there was traction in cities across the north. So from Lancaster to Leeds, Middlesbrough, Sheffield, in some of the places in Greater Manchester, Good Food, Greater Manchester. And if you'll stretch the boundary slightly to include Nottingham and other places further south, we're also going to, so those places are called Pathfinder places. And we're going to then extend that out into Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and Southern England next year. Just to sort of say what's possible here, we're talking about the north of England. I think we'd all recognise that we need some sort of protected environments, assisted growing. We're not the technologists, and I'm not a high-tech grower. I'm an allotment grower myself. So one of the questions is, what is possible? What is economically viable? And my question for the evening is, what will become our shared vision for the northern urban and peri-urban agricultural revolution?
Brilliant, thank you, Jeremy.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're going into the main part of our session this evening, and the format is going to be that Anna from Food Futures in Lancaster, who's been running this conference so amazingly, also Joe Dunn from Middlesbrough and Gareth Roberts from Sheffield, are going to each have a short period of time talking about what they're doing and what's happening in their area, and then they're going to pose a question, at which point we will then break into breakout rooms for a discussion about that question, and then come back to feedback. And we'll do that in turn, first for Anna, then for, I'm not sure who's next, I can't remember, Joe or Gareth. Gareth, great, and then Joe. So we really appreciate your, just bring all your thoughts, all your questions, anything that's sparked your interest or inspired you in the conference and in your own work that is relevant to the questions that you're going to hear. And have also in your minds thoughts about what could our local and regional authorities contribute. Were they able to be more adventurous and less risk averse with policy and resources, for example? So these are just some things to hold in your mind. Name examples of good practice that are relevant, and what, just trying to pinpoint what the deepest challenges are that we're addressing when we're trying to create a healing food system. So without further ado, I'll ask the speakers to just introduce themselves in turn. So Anna, if I'll hand over to you, maybe if you introduce yourself and then go into your piece.
All right, so I'm going. So I'm Anna Clayton and I'm based in Lancaster, so the northwest of England, for those of you that don't know where Lancaster is. And yeah, so Lancaster is one of the Pathfinder cities, and it's really Food Futures in Lancaster that is hoping to help pick up whatever role we end up picking up, along with Jess Davies from Lancaster University. And I think I'm going to go straight into my presentation. I have a few things to share just to keep me flowing. I'm quite tired at the moment. Can you all see my PowerPoint? Yeah, great. So full screen mode. Don't know what that line is over my screen, but never mind. So yeah, like I said, I'm talking on behalf of Food Futures, which is Lancaster's Sustainable Food Partnership. And I just want to remind us of the question that I'm going to really talk to, which is how or can nature-friendly urban farming and growing contribute to tackling food security and the climate emergency? Right. So yes, the moment is now. So at the start of this Urban Agriculture Consortium journey, each of the Pathfinder cities were asked to complete a reflective exercise. And like all things, these exercises are really good at forcing us as a place to really think through what the potential is. And in doing it with Jess Davies from Lancaster University, our answer to the question, what potential is there in Lancaster to upscale urban growing? We said it's good and the moment is right now for us here. And the reason I say that is for the range of points that I've put on this slide. So first of all, Lancaster City Council declared a climate emergency last year, and they facilitated a very well designed and thought through people's jury. And out of that process, food and farming has been selected as a strategic priority for our area, which is the first time that we've been in this situation. We will be hearing the outcomes of that jury in October, and we expect that increasing local horticultural production is going to be one of the recommendations, alongside reducing waste and supporting shifts in diet to more plant-based diets. And we're very conscious that a big downfall of a lot of these processes is there isn't the funding or network in place to support the recommendations that come out of these jury processes. So Food Futures, we've decided as a partnership to pick up whatever comes out of that. So we're very lucky in our area to have this network of change makers that are willing to help in whatever comes out. And we, whether or not urban agriculture is part of that, we feel that it will play an important role in any climate strategy that Lancaster City Council takes forward. And as part of our wider work and our own strategy, we're looking at how we create pathways into commercial growing. And we, from experience and from seeing patterns locally, we've noticed that backyard gardens, allotment tiers, school growing projects and community gardens are raising interest in farming as a career. And so we've started a farm start scheme here, which hopes to support and enable a pathway for these hobbyist growers, I guess you could say, to move into commercial growing. And as part of that farm start scheme, we're looking to broker sites around the city to facilitate market gardens both within the city and in the urban areas, the peri-urban area around the city. And then we have some great local resources. So at Lancaster University, they currently facilitate a Urban Revolution project, which is looking at how you upscale urban growing within urban centres and in the peri-urban areas of cities. And so they've got a lot of academic specialisms, I guess, around different disciplines that can enable urban agriculture to be upscaled. And locally, we have several areas, as I imagine do most cities, that are under serious redevelopment. And these include a canal corridor which runs through the centre of Lancaster, the Garden Village and Eden North project, all of which we're feeding into consultation processes about and sitting on steering groups to try and embed growing into their design. So yeah, the moment really feels like it's now for us here in Lancaster. My screen has frozen. I'll skip that slide. It was just images of some of the stuff we're doing. So yeah, to reflect back on that question, we feel that urban agriculture will play a part in any response to the climate and ecological emergency. It won't form the whole response, which I guess that's obvious. And in particular, it'll play an important role in shortening food supply chains, facilitating access to local seasonal organic produce, and in our area particularly increase local horticultural production. So we're in an area that's predominantly a livestock farming sector. And as part of that, we hope to run plant-based diet campaigns and various other things that shift towards food cultures that are more in line with our planetary boundaries. And we also see that urban agriculture will play an important role in bringing local residents in direct contact with food, which will facilitate greater understanding around how food is and can be grown. And ultimately, it will bring people in touch with the seasons again, and the wider ecological cycles that our food system ultimately relies on, as do we. Yeah, and as part of that, we feel that it has an important role to play in facilitating various pathways that will ultimately lead to increased food security and food sovereignty locally. And I've just named two pathways that came to mind whilst I was putting this together this afternoon. So shifts from this idea of a passive consumer to food citizen, and from a hobbyist food producer or gardener through to commercially ecological growing career or farm. And the question that I want to just leave us with to explore is one that we've been really reflecting on after this exercise that we've gone through. And it's what key infrastructure do we actually need to enable us to facilitate the scaling up, or I like to use the term scaling out rather than scaling up, of real urban farming and growing. And by real, I'm just referring to the values that underlie this conference really, and that of the Urban Agriculture Consortium. And yeah, in asking this question by infrastructure, I'm talking about who should or has to be involved to help make this happen. What sort of distribution networks do we need? What sort of skills and specialists do we need to have within our partnership to help us facilitate this move? And I'm going to stop there.
Brilliant, thank you, Anna. So that's a question to all of you. I've put it in the chat. I'm going to put you into randomized breakout rooms and to explore that question together. And then I'll ask you to feedback in the chat afterwards. So here we go. I'm just trying to see who is where and make sure we've got good spread. I think we're okay. We've got about 8-9 minutes.
Hi everybody, good evening. So yeah, my name's Gareth Roberts and I'm in Sheffield, and I'll pop some slides up. We haven't got much time. I used to lecture for a living, so speaking at this amount of time is quite challenging for me, actually. So, can you hear? Can you see my slide? It's just, I've got my title slide up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's good.
So yeah, that you can see hopefully the group there. That's Chef Food. That's the steering group of our Sheffield Food Partnership, and Regather is the host organisation of Chef Food, a lead partner. But it's a really significant grouping of a whole range of different food system actors, and we're just making great progress at the moment. So I'm kind of talking briefly about a perspective on urban agriculture that obviously is very Sheffield specific. I think typical maybe of a northern UK city. So just to start with though, this is the Regather Works. This is a typical works building in Sheffield. Obviously the city makes big lumps of metal and little lumps of metal, and anything that's made of metal, we've made it, and we've done that for hundreds and hundreds of years. Obviously, as a result, our signature food product is a bottle of Henderson's Relish, and make of that what you will. But I think it does say a lot about a particular type of food culture, and one that is vibrant, and one that is very contemporary for a post-industrial urban city. But I thought I'd start with a Google Map image. So here's Regather, that red arrow, and you've only got to look around, literally within 30 seconds walk of our particular base, and we happen to be in the London Road area, which is a very diverse area, and you can literally eat around the world just by walking up and down London Road, and you can call in at a Sainsbury's and a Tesco's and everything in between. But there we are, the big red arrow. That's where we are. Regather Works. I'm going to do a little go back into time. So what does that place look like after the rapid population and population density increase of Sheffield? So there's the big red arrow again, and you can still see London Road, but you've just got loads and loads of not really just houses. What you can't see in amongst all of those properties would be a very, very diverse light industrial manufacturing sector with the little mesters and little workshops and courtyards, all making cutlery and doing it in a very flexible way. Little project teams coming together and making stuff, not producing food but by any means, but obviously the population had to eat, and we did a good job of sustaining that population with food produced around the city. And this particular area, Little Sheffield, if you go back again to a pre-industrial era, this is what it looks like. And we've located ourselves on this particular map, and through doing some historical research, we found out that Little Sheffield actually was an agricultural hamlet on the outskirts of what was then Sheffield town and the castle, over the other side of the moor, which is a big shopping area now. Then it was just a big moor, and in some respects it's not changed at all. So it's just a big open space containing absolutely nothing. So that's the only joke of the evening. But there we go. So the pre-industrial Sheffield there, but it just goes to show that even Sheffield, an industrial titan, global power when it comes to industry, we still started from fields producing food. So for us, it's a rich history. Now we're going to jump straight in. So this is a food system model, and we refer to it all the time. And it's incredibly complex, a huge range of systems. But for us, that little image of Little Sheffield, this agricultural hamlet helping feed a growing city, certain aspects of this model haven't changed one bit, not even slightly. And I want to focus at the top of that image of farming inputs. So we've got nutrients, water, seed, biodiversity, sunlight, chemicals, know-how, labour, money, and out comes the food. But these are the inputs on which we depend and on which our food system depends. So what is it, that those are? What do we need, basically? So if we want to produce food wherever, I've put a list together that I feel, certainly as far as we're concerned with Regather, we grow organically. We have 15 acres on a peri-urban site, and we've put in a borehole, and we've spent 3 years improving the soil. We've put in polytunnels to cover certain parts of it. We bring in inputs, nutrients, green manure, compost. We have seed, and we're using trees. We're going to be using chickens. All of this mix of techniques and inputs to make food production possible. Because without all of those inputs, without the right growing environment, it's not possible. But what we need to now think about, where we're growing in urban areas, not nice fields on the outskirts of cities, because yes, they're near cities, but they're still fields. You've got soil, etc. But how do we break into urban brownfield sites, little pockets of land, maybe buildings, and so on. So the inputs vary, and the conditions that we're working in. The ecosystem is an urban ecosystem. So with water, think about rain harvesting, grey water reuse. Can we grow without soil? Can we import the soil? How do we deal with contamination issues? Can we make soil out of flows of nutrients coming out of the urban environment? So reprocessing organic matter, anaerobic digestion, composting. What kind of light and heat sources are out there? Can we use different ways of producing those key inputs, particularly growing in the north? And what kind of sites are available? Are we talking indoor? Are we talking vertical, rooftop, brownfield? And what kind of expertise exists? Obviously with Sheffield, we've got major universities, we've got a manufacturing, an industrial backbone that is not about food. It's about producing shiny lumps of metal. And all I want to do is make those shiny lumps of metal grow food, really. But I want to put forward this kind of proposition, basically, it's integrated urban agriculture. So what does that look like? So this graphic, in hopefully one slide, lots going on, but basically you've got yourself a food system in Sheffield, and a whole range of facilities and sites and infrastructure that we're using to produce food that goes into our fruit and veg box scheme. And so, what does that look like as a fully integrated urban agriculture system? Okay, so, what about the labour? If we're in a city, there are thousands of people, and particularly now, the question of repurposing labour, skilling people up, how do we bring that into in significant quantities food production in an urban environment? How do we make the land that's actually available now? Our city centres are dying. They have been for a while. COVID has just accelerated what many people see as inevitable. Why aren't we thinking about growing food in the centre of where people live, rather than growing it, further and further away from where people live and work and enjoy socialising and so on? What about flows of heat? In Sheffield, we have an energy recovery facility. Otherwise, basically an incinerator, but it's recovering embedded calorific energy from waste and putting that into a district heating system. Where could we use that heat in urban agriculture? Water collection, thinking about ways of, all that water that's flooding us, more and more now, let's put that to good use. CO2, so large quantities of CO2 being produced, particularly in industrial processes in our city. Why aren't we pumping that into greenhouses and making a much more optimal growing conditions? Same with light, our incinerator, our industrial processes, they're producing heat, they're producing private wire electricity. why not turn that into light, the right kind of light, extend our growing seasons. We've got an amazing plant science team at the University of Sheffield. They're looking at using polymer substrates, and they're being used in places all around the world where growing conditions are not favourable. Refugee camps, they're turning mattresses into growing installations. So this is soil, but not as we know it. And data. Where does data fit in all of this? Our cities now produce vast quantities of data, just floating around. And what are we doing to repurpose that to make food systems much more efficient and integrated? And there's so much more. So, thinking about urban agriculture very much in the urban context. And for me, the question is, how can we fully integrate this type of urban agriculture and still be nature friendly? That's the question to get your heads around. And I hope that's okay, Maddie. Back to you, I think.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gareth. Brilliant. I'm sorry that we have to squeeze so much important stuff into a short period of time. Do you want to, so if everyone holds that in their minds, I've got it in the chat as well. How can we fully integrate in the way that Gareth described urban agriculture and still be nature friendly? What does that mean in an urban setting? I'm going to put you back into your breakout rooms for discussion. We'll have about 8 to 10 minutes. Here we go. Already from those discussions in our group, lots of interesting threads starting to come out, and differences of view, which is really important. And again, as before, hopefully you've noted some things down, and please do share them into the chat, your feedback from those sessions, reflections, thoughts, aha moments, penny dropping moments, or just further questions in response to what Gareth was asking. How can we fully integrate urban agriculture and still be nature friendly? So really taking advantage of all resources that urban places offer. So we've got pollinator corridors, connecting green spaces, planning is key. Can indoor food growing be nature friendly? That's the question. Repurpose existing low-tech to create viable, protected growing. Focus on improving soil health. It talked about important connection between nutrient density and soil biodiversity. Actually, if we want nutrient-dense food and not empty food, what does that mean in terms of how it's grown? We need to understand the urban ecosystem further. It needs to be a social integration, not just ecological and environmental. It came up quite a bit, our relationship to our spaces, our places, and how we can blend, the green and the grey and the brown in a much more vibrant way. Integrate livestock more into the urban environment, like it. Recognise that it's different experience. It's a different experience for white people. Food growing not just supporting nature, but reconnecting people with nature. Healthy soil equals healthy plants equals healthy people. Look at aquaponics. Thank you, Elizabeth. Is the same approach relevant in market towns and in urban conurbations? There's a lot of things coming up there. Thank you very much. Much food for thought. And I will pass on to our next speaker, who is Jo Dunn, who is based in Middlesbrough, and for our third round. Over to you, Jo.
Thank you very much. And I don't have slides, so there won't be that. Yeah, won't be sharing screens or anything. And
about 5 minutes. Yep,
certainly. Basically, I mean, it's ripe for picking in Middlesbrough, I think. There's a rich history of food production and growing at a community scale, and that grassroots sort of scale. And there's sufficient land available within the town through allotments and various other things. And then over the years, there's been some formal and informal networks have kind of developed and have kind of recently been supported and trying to be gathered together through the creation of Incredible Edible Middlesbrough, and just kind of pulling people together, all the learning and the expertise and the enthusiasm. And the value of and the benefits of local food and healthy food in communities is really quite strong now. It's disseminated through a range of partners at various different levels, and it's kind of coordinated but not solely delivered by the Middlesbrough Food Partnership, which is it's sort of really developing and moving forward. We're part of the Sustainable Food Cities network. I forgot to say, yes, I'm Jo from Middlesbrough. I work for Middlesbrough Environment City. I'm the Food Partnership Coordinator, so that should have been at the front. So, but through the extremely successful and local authority endorsed Growing Middlesbrough initiative, we've got, and that was an initiative to improve access to local food. Local food is now kind of, and what's produced is in quite high demand for what, you know, pre-COVID in food establishments throughout the town. An extremely strong food movement centred around our food partnership. And then what we've managed to achieve, getting the Sustainable Food Cities bronze, and then we pushed that further and managed to achieve our silver award last year. And so that's kind of helped to influence our local authority, and it's gaining greater recognition of the work of our food partnership and all the various partners and the types of work that they're doing with our local authority. And so through the Middlesbrough Food Partnership Food Action Plan, which has kind of been informally adopted by our local authority as an action plan for food around Middlesbrough, it's also got sort of actions set out that to develop and sort of improve urban and peri-urban agriculture and food production. What's now quite exciting and very, very pleasing is a number of emerging opportunities within Middlesbrough that means that it's, that's why I feel like it's right for picking. The time is right, as Anna also alluded to over in Lancaster, to scale up urban farming and food growing. Sort of for over 10 years, the Middlesbrough Council has been a One Planet Living council, and so has adopted One Planet Living as its kind of framework for sustainability. And as we know, those that know the One Planet Living framework, local and sustainable food is a key part of that framework. And so what Middlesbrough Council are now kind of in the development stages and very close to is developing a blue and green infrastructure strategy, which will hopefully influence the local plan and the whole kind of planning sphere. And food figures heavily in that. I did bang the drum rather loudly on that one, so it's good to see that it was listened to. And we've also got a green strategy, which is just about to be kind of launched. And so that's also following our One Planet Living framework as well. And the Middlesbrough Food Partnership will be leading on local and sustainable food themes. So it's not creating something new with a whole range of different people that don't fully understand this. This is very much the food partnership and all of the various partners. And our food partnership has been in operation sort of for over 10 years now as well. So that's absolutely fantastic. And also Middlesbrough has just become a climate action fund location as well. So things are kind of happening. We cannot get away from the fact that food poverty and food insecurity is a huge issue in Middlesbrough. And obviously, like with most places across the country, it's made significantly worse by COVID. And through our Food Power Alliance, we've got a fantastic network of 20 plus surplus redistribution pop-up shops across the town that are owned or operated by the communities that they're in and that they serve. And this kind of leads on to my kind of question, which is, should locally grown food do more to feed and nourish people who are food insecure or in food poverty? And if yes, what are the existing barriers stopping this happening now, and how can they be overcome? So there we go.
That was exactly to the second, Joe. You win. Brilliant. So I've reshuffled the breakout rooms, and we're going to, for the third time, for our small group discussion on the question, should locally grown food do more to feed and nourish people who are in food poverty? If yes, what are the existing barriers stopping this, and how can they be overcome? Here we go. So yeah, same as before. It'd be great to hear all of your reflections and feedback. Please type it into the chat, and if anyone has any questions or comments they want to share verbally, please unmute. Thank you, Tanya.
Oh, one quick question. How are you going to write this up or present the findings of this session back? It feels like there's been a lot of really valuable input, and I kind of, other than copying and pasting that Zoom chat, which I don't fancy much.
Yeah, Anna.
So the recording will be shared after, and I am saving the chat file, so that can be adapted and written up, so we can share that.
And the two presentations?
All of the presentations, yeah, if people are happy to share them, which I'm sure they are, they can all go up.
Yeah, thank you. Graham.
One of the things to point out, Anna, is that I was told by the organisers they would not share the chat. So if you can save the chat and share it, that's helpful, because they're just going to share the film of the presentation. But there's a lot of good stuff in the chat. Personally, I'd share both.
Yeah, we're saving all chats from all sessions, but we just might have to edit them for GDPR reasons. So something will come out.
Thank you. So so we've got Alan talks about your local pantry as a network of community food stores creating a sustainable and long-term solution to food poverty. So that's yourlocalpantry.co.uk. Logistics, getting donated grown food to end users. And your local pantry schemes are based on membership, so they're different to food banks. That's interesting. Yes, cost, access, cultural perception of local food, raising awareness about where the local food is available. Conversation moved very quickly from food growing to surplus food redistribution, which, if you take an urban ecosystem view of food and nutrient flows in urban context, is a form of local food production. Peer support, take food out of the market, fund farmers to work with local people. Start talking about nutrition security and not just food security. Increase awareness of beyond organic, food that's been grown regeneratively, and permaculture, agroforestry, etc. Raise awareness of diet-related non-communicable diseases and how that can be prevented with food that is nutrient dense. The challenge of overcoming supermarket surplus disposal when it's so cheap. Food banks don't accept fresh produce. It's a very important barrier, or find it difficult to handle it. So long as small-scale market gardens have to stay in business, cost may always be a barrier. How does that food grown regeneratively also be affordable and provide livelihoods, sustainable livelihoods? Abundancenetwork.org.uk. All over the UK, people have started harvesting gluts of unwanted fruit in home gardens. Great. Fair share and reliance on supermarket surplus devalues local food production. Linked with public health. Really interesting conversation about linking this to broader issues of social justice. There's a lot coming through in this one. Trust versus choice is a major challenge. Create connections with healthcare systems. Schemes to engage people in growing in culturally appropriate ways. Infrastructure, storage facilities for fresh produce. And we've got a heads up for a talk coming up. There's a link there. The 20-minute neighbourhood learning from Down Under. Thank you, Katie. And a possible barrier that maybe that some food impoverished may not know ways of cooking or have means to cook fresh produce. Yeah. So there's lots in there. Hopefully that's useful for you, Joe. And in our we've just got last few minutes, really, till it's 9 o'clock. I don't know if anyone from the consortium and any of the speakers might be able to stay a bit longer if there's a particular question somebody wanted to ask, or otherwise, if that's a definite no, we'll close at 9. Yeah, just wanted to see, are there any burning questions? I wish we had longer I'd also love to hear about what's going on in Leeds and where they have just recently, Leeds have recently done a policy paper on growing a resilient food system in Leeds. So much amazing stuff going on. Yeah, does anybody have anything that they want to share at this point before we close? Any feedback about the session? How we can learn from each other?
Sonia, do you want to say anything?
No, I think it was really positive what we had with the policy paper that we put forth to the council. And just before coming into this meeting this evening, we were talking with a council member about urban agriculture again. So it's really moving up the agenda. The doors are really open. It's quite exciting in that way. So keep going. Just a bit earlier in the evening, please.
Anybody else have anything they want to share, feedback about the session, anything they've heard?
No, you're all dying of hunger and thirst, no doubt. Graham, you're muted.
Just to say, we've come up with lots and lots of actual practical things that are going on about this particular issue of food poverty. And is there a way that we can actually find somewhere we could bank all these so we have a connection to this wealth of ideas and actual practical solutions that are happening?
Yes, we can certainly do that. We could also, I'm not sure how you share things with participants, Anna, but maybe.
Well, maybe in the messaging stuff in the base page, we could put something up for ask people to share.
I'm not clear what that base page is, but I'll make sure that
the home page of the event. There's top right, there's a community engagement bit.
Yeah, I imagine that the team will want to put everything on the actual website rather than the Kiko platform, because Kiko won't last beyond the conference, but the website will. But I assure you, I don't know how to do it anymore, but we will share all the chat and write something up. And we can also put links to other networks that particularly address it.
Because there are loads of things that came up in our chat which haven't been mentioned here at all. There are lots of really positive ideas and things happening. I think it would be just really helpful if we could all share them and learn from each other.
So that's a different question, things that you haven't shared. So put them all in the chat.
Okay, it's I'm going to.
There might be a way of making some kind of Google Doc that people can keep contributing to, perhaps.
Okay, I'm going to just say a couple of things to wrap up then, if that's all right, Maddie.
Yes, please do.
Absolutely fascinating. Thanks ever so much to all of you for taking part and giving your time and your ideas. And it's hard logistically running this, and well done, Maddie and Anna, for keeping it on track. Very good, very well done. Hard to work in breakout rooms. Some people are better at it or more comfortable than others. So appreciate the fact that not everyone was contributing, but perhaps you were listening. So we will take this as part of our consultation exercise and taking this forward with the Northern Pathfinders places. And what we learn from this will be amplified and accelerated. As I said earlier, we're putting in a proposal to speak at the Wales Real Farming Conference shortly. And we haven't put in a proposal to speak at the Oxford Real Farming Conference global version because we just didn't think we'd get on the agenda. But we will be there in 2022, I guess. So yeah, really good. Thanks very much. I'm mightily relieved that we didn't have any major cock-ups. And so thanks very much, and see you all again in another context.
Yeah, thank you all. And to find out more, I've just put the Green Future web page, which is where there'll be more information about the Urban Ag Consortium generally. Thank you all so much for bearing with us and all your great thoughts. And
thank you, Jeremy. Thank you,
for
Maddie.
sharing your experiences, all the speakers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie,
Thank you.
for hosting it.